and welcome to How to Succeed During a Pandemic. Hi, I'm MikeWLauraL, your host, and I'm delighted to welcome you today. This is a new version of a show that we've been doing since August. In the past, it's been called How to Succeed in Business During a Pandemic, but we have widened the focus of the show to talk about life in general. And we've done that because this time is not only challenging business people, but also challenging every aspect of our life. And we thought it would be an interesting show, not only to change the focus a little bit, widen the focus, but also to increase the amount of time we have. So instead of 15 minutes, we're now on for half an hour. And I am delighted to welcome two very special guests today. I am a marketer, I'm a copywriter, and one of the things I love doing is networking and meeting new people. And in the course of my networking, I met a young lady named Laura Levine, who works for a company called Geiger, and that's a promotionals firm. One of the things she mentioned about her firm was that they have items that are environmentally friendly, because there are a lot of people today concerned about that. And then in the course of networking, I happened to be in the same networking session as Laura. A young man came in named Mike Wapner, who is a financial advisor, and he works for BlueLake. I want to get the name of the company right, Mike. BlueLake Wealth Advisors. And Mike mentioned that he likes to handle investments that are sustainable and environmentally friendly. And that's a specialty of his. And I couldn't help thinking, wow, two people in the same room that are both kind of have the same mindset, although they're in two totally different businesses. And it struck me that we could have a really interesting conversation about the role that concern about the environment has in business, not only in the things that we're doing, but in the things our clients do as well. And so I invited them to join me today to talk about just that. And now I'm going to shut up and introduce them and have them introduce themselves and tell you about what they do and why they do it. Laura, why don't we start with you?
All right. As Wendy said, my name is Laura Levine. I work for Geiger Promotions. We are the world's largest family-owned promotional product business company out there, with both representation in the United States and actually worldwide as well. I've been in the promotions industry about 11 years now, with Geiger specifically about 3 years. And just kind of love the way that the Geiger kind of handles things, really looks after that social responsibility care, which of course we'll go into a little bit later in the interview. So,
and Mike, why don't we have you tell us what you do and how you began with in investments. Give us your elevator speech and your background.
Well, I've actually had a few careers, but a while back I decided that I wanted to be a financial advisor. And that's because actually my wife and I had been clients of an advisor for quite some time. And they'd always made us feel good about where we were and where we're headed. We had a good understanding of our financial situation and a good understanding of our options. And I realized that would be a great thing to be able to do for other people, is be able to give them that good understanding of their current financial situation, because life is complicated, finances can get very complicated, and far too many people don't pay enough attention to their finances, and some consciously ignore it because it stresses them out too much if they think about it. So what I want to do, I work with professionals and business owners to help them get a good handle on where they are financially and where they're headed, and hopefully where they're headed is where they want to be. I connected with BlueLake Wealth Advisors. We're a small group of independent advisors. So my business model is independent and fee-based. We don't have to get into that anymore today. But the key is that's the business model that seemed right for me because that's the way I like to be able to connect with the people I work with. BlueLake, again, we're a small group of independents, 8 advisors plus some support staff. We actually advise over 600 million in assets, so we're not tiny, but we're certainly not a big multinational bank. And just what we really try to do is get to know people, their goals, and what they're trying to achieve in life, and then work with them over time through planning and wealth management to do the best we can to help them achieve those goals.
Thank you. The whole thing about financial advice and money and banking and all of that. I mean, I'm a creative person, so I've never sort of that isn't my kind of part of the world. But at the same time, what you just said about knowing where you're going, that really resonates with me. And of course, that's the whole basis of insurance and other financial products. But I think it's really true because there's nothing more upsetting than the feeling of where's the rent coming from? How, am I going to be okay next month, even if I'm okay right now? And that
just to that point. I mean, financial advisors are probably best known for managing investments. And I do manage investments, and it is important. But I really try to emphasize the planning for people because having that knowledge of that you can get to where you want to be, or at least you have good control, you have good choices, you have options, I think is really important. And that can be regardless. And even people who don't consider themselves rich can really benefit from some of that planning.
I used to work for a bank. I mean, as a writer, I was in the marketing department of a bank, and my first week's salary was late, and there was some mix up with the paperwork. And I phoned HR, and I was like very intense about it. And then I apologized, because we got it all straightened out. And the HR lady said, "That's okay. I totally understand. Money is a very emotional issue." And I was like, oh my God, the wisdom of the ages. It's like, because we tend to think of it as like rational and, it doesn't have anything to do with emotion, and it has everything to do with emotion. So I just thought that was a very wise statement and something I've never forgotten.
Yeah. Well, and again, we don't want to talk today all about financial advisor, but just to reinforce that, another thing advisors do for their clients is try to keep the emotion out of the decision making because emotional investment decisions tend not to be great. And we'll talk from here on about only sustainable kind of stuff, and we can talk.
Right. Well, that's, it's interesting because that actually, my thought is that what you do, the sustainable investments that we're going to talk about, that it has an emotional appeal to so much of the world, specifically 2 generations, which are the millennials and Generation Z. And that was really the kind of inspiration for this show. So it's you were the kind of brains behind the person having that emotional impulse and saying, well, wait a minute, I know this is the direction I want to go in. I'm going to turn it over to Mike for him to figure out what makes the most sense, right?
Yeah, let's put some structure and some rational thinking behind those emotions. Sure, that'll work.
Okay, Laura, let's talk about promotions a little bit. And I just want to be clear with people to, what are promotions and what has that got to do with the world? In marketing, promotions are very important. Yes, we know about advertising and direct response and getting stuff in the mail that tells you what to buy and all of that. But promotions are those things that the gifts that you receive from the bank, for example, when you go to a convention. God, doesn't that seem another life ago? I mean, like, who does that?
You and me both, yes.
but mugs with the company name on it, the shirt with the company name on it, all those things are promotional items. And they create a feeling about the company that's giving you the gift, but they also remind you of that company. They're constantly in front of you if you like them. Calendars, for example. How many of us actually buy calendars anymore? We get them from our business contacts. All of those things are very important. And they present a connection to the brand that gives that gift. So one of the things that I was intrigued by, this whole idea of an environmentally friendly promotions, is because many consumers make decisions of what they think of a company based on their record in terms of the environment. Are they using recycled paper, for example, when you get a notice from them? So that was what impressed me so much, Laura. So tell me, how do you guys come up with what is environmentally friendly in terms of promotions? Are there special houses that specialize in that, or how does that work?
Well, absolutely. Within a number of our different suppliers, because there's a lot of different suppliers out there that we can kind of choose to buy and sell the products from. Some of them obviously are more environmentally friendly than others. We also, so some of them have like an entire division of, it's either, items made from recyclable materials or things that are easy compostable, like, even, or some of the materials that they use to create the products with, even you think of your basic plastic pen, if it's made out of that regular plastic, sure, that plastic's not going anywhere for years upon years upon years, if at all. But now a lot of the companies are starting to make them from either like corn or a wheat base. Just little things like that just make it a little bit more sustainable. And, eventually when the pen does wear out and break down, that it actually will break down and be more beneficial to the earth than just something else sitting in the landfill piling up years after years. But not only with the environmentally friendly, we also partner with a lot of companies that have the social responsibility aspect as well. So it's either, a portion of the proceeds go back to a certain charity or fundraiser or community like that. Some of the items that we source, the people that are making them, it's from areas that normally there would be no other opportunity for income for some of these people. So it's, kind of creating a lifestyle and jobs and opportunities for those in typical areas that wouldn't have that kind of opportunity otherwise. And so seeking out, some of those factories. And
these are local companies, or you mean overseas, or I'm not sure what you mean.
Both. So, even within the local suppliers, some of them kind of for the help that they need in the office, if it's either the larger projects or customization, those kind of things, that they bring in people from some of those areas that aren't as economically powerful, and giving jobs and opportunities to those who wouldn't normally have otherwise. But also some of the items and products that they sell come from, some of the most isolated areas of, some of the third world countries that, are making gift baskets out of like bicycle wheel spokes, or, like little like amenity bags made from like the fishnet, and the lining and those kind of things, that it's all the recyclable materials and things that are second nature to that area, but it's not something that you would normally think or tend to use in your everyday products.
Mike, I wanted to ask you, how did your interest in the investments that you favor, how did that begin? Was it? Well, tell me, how did it start?
I mean, as far as the sustainable, socially responsible investing, I'm just a long time green, environmentally friendly guy. In my much younger days, even though I grew up in the Bronx, New York, I was fortunate to be able to get away from the city during the summers. I really enjoy the outdoors. In later years, spent a lot of time cycling and hiking. I started contributing to nonprofits like the Nature Conservancy and the World Wildlife Fund. When I moved to Chicago, I've been a member of the Lincoln Park Zoo for ever since I moved to town, because I love the fact that it's free and that city people can get exposed to wildlife. So all these things have just been a part of what I cared about. I became a fanatic recycler. I didn't trust the Chicago Blue Bag recycling program back in the day, for those that remember that. So my garage used to fill up with dozens and dozens of cartons of newspapers so I could take to a recycling center. Anyway, so that's me. And the great thing is that the investment world, the investment industry, globally, the finance industry has been moving in this direction. There's an increasing recognition that what companies do, their policies, their actions, beyond just the classic financial measures of price earnings and profit growth, really do have, especially over the long term, a significant impact on the risks that business faces and the long-term financial returns of that business. And so this was just a great opportunity for me to connect, the way I say it, connect my capitalist head with my environmental heart. To be able to look at ways to take advantage of the power of money, the power of the finance industry to start moving things in a different direction.
So, Laura, I know that with promotions, there is a whole line of promotions having to do with COVID-19 that we'll get into later. But, Mike, I wanted to ask you, have you noticed any effect that the illness has had and people's reaction to it have had on your business?
I think really from an overall investment perspective, there's been so much volatility that it has had a lot of people just sort of withdraw a little bit more. That people who have been inclined to not pay attention are saying, I definitely don't want to pay attention. I know I shouldn't overreact to this. So in a way, that's been good because it's prevented people from overreacting in most cases. Interestingly, I think where it's had a bigger impact on my business and related is it's gotten people to think a little bit more about the big picture, and have a little bit more interest in the planning I was talking about before, and saying, oh, okay, well, things can change. Let's take a look at, maybe I would be better off if I had an understanding of what my future would look like if this happened or that happened. And that's the whole part of the planning process. Similarly, there's related things such as people who maybe haven't had long-term care insurance are even more aware of maybe the need to at least evaluate that. And I'm a very big proponent of estate planning. And I tell people all the time that you should have a will, you should have powers of attorney set up. And that this is something that more people have been facing their mortality. And so I know a couple of estate planning attorneys and say, business has been picking up a bit for them as well. So it's more in that big picture thing that has gotten some people really thinking more and thinking about their big picture.
Do you do estate planning? Is that part of what you do, or do you connect with estate planners?
No, I do not. I work with estate planning attorneys because the kinds of goals that people set, for example, if they want to leave a certain kind of legacy, if they have the financial resources to pass along in different ways, we might define certain trust arrangements, things like that. But all of the actual legal work is done by somebody with a law degree that I don't touch. So it's very much a teamwork, but it's the two sides of the same coin that the same people are facing. So it's definitely worth the conversation.
This whole issue of planning ahead, and this is all, I think the COVID-19 has been a wake-up call for all of us that life does not necessarily go on forever. And not only that, but you may not have fair warning. So when you're okay, you really have to set it up so that you are prepared for whatever the future presents to you. And I'm just thinking that this, that might be the subject of a blog or an article or even just a letter to your clients, and say just always think ahead, because if we've learned nothing else in this time, that's one of the lessons I think we all should have learned. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I actually do have a brief monthly newsletter, and one of the items in the December issue was now is a good time to check your estate plan.
Yeah, and it's true.
So yeah, I agree.
And I think people are receptive to that because they, it's like they know it, but they don't really want to think about it until somebody says, "Well, wait a minute, this is a good moment." Laura, why don't you tell us about how the items that are flying off the shelf because of COVID-19?
Absolutely. So needless to say, a lot of us were familiar with the shortage or lack thereof of sanitizers earlier in the year. We would place an order and maybe get it 2 to 3 months later. So you want to talk about the whole planning ahead thing. Sometimes it's long-term planning ahead, and sometimes it's even that if we plant the seed now, eventually it'll grow.
How do you guys, when you think about the future and the lessons that we've learned in the last year, I mean, do you kind of envision things carrying over? I mean, my view is that we are not going to give up Zooming. That in some form or other, this is going to be part of our continuing life. And just as working at home, I just don't see people giving that up, because it has many pluses to it. So I just see accommodation is going to be made even when we're finally able to get back face to face again. There are some things we're going to want to hold on to. But how about you guys? What do you think? Mike, how about you?
Yeah, I definitely think there's going to be an ongoing impact from what people experience. It's the situation has raised awareness of a number of issues. There's people are more familiar with the fact now of where diseases come from and how they spread, and that there are things that are going on in the world that are setting us up for this happening again and again. So I think people will be more aware of that and might be more inclined to be supportive of activities, of policies that will help prevent some of these things in the future, or help mitigate the problems. So I think that's going to be the broadest impact. There are plenty of people who are spend most of their thought effort, though, thinking about their immediate world, their immediate needs. In many cases, don't have the luxury to think about things far beyond them, and that's still going to be the case. There's still a lot of people in the world and in the United States that have to think primarily about their family. They can't be as concerned about other things, so that's not going to change either. But yeah, there will be some trends that will stick around on the investing side. Again, people are becoming more aware of what some of the opportunities are to have an impact there. So that's accelerated a bit from the path it was on earlier.
I'm not sure that I agree with that. I'm thinking just like what's happening in London now with a virus being born, or at least circulating, that's even easier to get than the one we're coping with right now, than COVID-19, or at least this form of COVID-19 that we all know. My thought is that people are becoming more aware of the fact that even though something is happening on the other side of the world, it is still connected to you. You still can't get away from it. So that the thing that Americans used to do and say, "Oh, I don't care, it's on the other side of the ocean," you know, too bad. You have to care. You have to have some awareness, because you can't just, it's a very small world. And we do interconnect with each other, whether or not we like it. So,
And I think the virus this year kind of proved that, yes, even though, for all we know, like the virus started in China, of how it went and spread, like all it took was one person coming back from that place or location to each of the different areas of the world, and how quickly it spread through. And for better or for worse, like you were just kind of saying, we are all interconnected. And I think it really proved itself this year of how much the world really does interact with each other, and that we're not, locally exclusive.
yeah. But I do understand what you mean, Mike. And that's the other thing that I think a lot of us are more aware of than we have been before, is the assumption is that if you live in this country, you have everything you need, and you're not hungry, and you don't have to worry about being homeless. Well, guess what? We know that's not true now, and I think more and more people are aware of that than they ever have been before. So,
well, one thing that's really brought up a lot in my industry is the huge percentage of the people that, for example, don't have $400 for an emergency if it comes up. I don't remember the percentage, but a huge percentage of Americans don't even have that amount of money. So really, just living week to week and paycheck to paycheck. And so there's a lot that kind of needs to be done. I'm actually a huge proponent of financial literacy education, and I've started getting involved in that. And that's something that hopefully is going to pick up as well out of this, is more recognition that there are a lot of people who don't necessarily have the means to live certain ways, and maybe not have the knowledge and education to help themselves out of certain situations.
yeah, I mean, I just feel like God or nature or whatever just kind of thumped a big hammer on our head. Wake up! There's other things going on than what's right in front of you, and you better pay attention. So, which may not be a bad thing, that may be the saving grace of us all.
But I do have to say, kind of on that note, that it's also been remarkable to see how everyone has come together and, supported their local neighbors and friends and uplifted. And, so with every bit of darkness, there is a light that shines through. So, we don't want to think of it all negatively, or, looking back. And I mean, yes, it had a large negative impact, but there were some very positive things that came out of it as well.
I cannot think of a better thing to end this program on. That's a beautiful ending. Thank you, Laura. I want to thank all of you. First, I want to thank my guests, Mike and Laura. Thanks for coming. I mean, this has just been a really interesting discussion, and we've covered a lot of topics actually in a very short period of time, and I hope meaningful ones and inspiring ones. And I want to thank all of you for listening, and I hope you'll come back again when we do this next week. Each week will be a different number of guests, different series of guests, and different topic. And if you have any suggestions to make, please send them on. You can reach me at Facebook. We have a Facebook page called How to Succeed in a Pandemic. And I hope you'll go on the page. The videos of this show will be on there. Also, to listen every week, Monday from noon to 12:30 on 216 The Net. That's what we're doing all this for. It starts off as a podcast, but it's also done as a video. And I hope that you'll tune in every week so you can hear the next show. And with that, I'll say goodbye and wish all of you a very happy new year. And remind you that for the moment, please stay in and stay well. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.